Hello, everybody, and welcome to the recap hangout of Social Chat. I'm Michelle Stinson Ross, and I am joined by my Social Chat co-host, Alan Connect,
Hi,
and our
everybody.
special guest, Dennis Yu.
Hey, Michelle and Alan, how are you guys?
Doing great,
Doing
sir.
great.
To quickly get into this, our discussion last Wednesday night was about Facebook, particularly Facebook ads, and we're just going to jump right into this. The first question we had for Dennis was, what opportunities does Facebook advertising open that organic engagement does not?
So we mentioned that getting in the newsfeed was the key thing. If you produce the content and it doesn't show up, then what's the point of doing that? And a lot of people don't realize it's a paid game now, but those who have realized that you can pay now have wondered, well, if I've got the engagement, I've got fans, how do I measure real ROI? And because of the rise of mobile and multiple channels, we were talking in the chat about how you can measure, you might do something in Facebook, but you measure the impact in the leads you generate, in the store, in conversions on the site, in your Nielsen ratings. So everything's becoming cross-channel, and we see Facebook as one of the main elements of that glue.
And I think one of the questions that was coming out from a lot of people, while we all have our guts tell us that getting into people's news feeds, whether it's organically or through the paid play in Facebook, it's very hard to present to the C-level that exact, connect the dots. I believe you gave a couple examples of where people could actually start connecting the dots. Dennis, do you want to give some ideas of the impact of Facebook promotions and so forth?
So it goes back to what is the value of word of mouth, or as Vaynerchuk likes to say, what's the value of your mom, right? Of branding. Of Red Bull, when they spent $100 million in 7 years to prepare to send Felix from space, did they sell more Red Bull that evening? No, but there certainly is brand power. So, Alan, to your question about how you measured it, I think I'd mentioned things like custom audiences. So if you upload your email to Facebook and you intentionally not upload a random segment, then you know that those people who you nurture on Facebook are more likely to open their email. Whether or not they clicked on your Facebook message that's in the newsfeed, your organic posts, it's still going to impact more people searching for your name on Google. It's going to increase your conversion rate when someone's walking through the mall and they see your restaurant versus that other restaurant. There's just a stronger brand affinity. The question is, how do you measure that difference? And the only way to do that is to split test, where you nurture some audiences and others you don't, by randomizing the email, randomizing which of the, if you're a franchise, you get multiple stores, then some stores you put in a test and some you put in a control. So that's where I think a lot of people are struggling, because social media personalities, or whoever owns social for these companies, even the small businesses especially, they are PR, content-oriented people, and they don't have the math and data background. So it's one of those, are you an engineer or a marketing kind of person questions. You've got to be both is the answer.
I'd like to add one of my favorite local restaurants. I actually wrote about them in a piece for Marketing Land. They made a decision when they opened up that they were not going to spend any money on advertising. They were just going to do Facebook. And yes, people who happen to go into the little strip mall that they're in saw them, checked them out, and they had word of mouth that way. But very quickly, they just asked everyone who came in, including myself, handed me a piece of paper and say, like us on Facebook so you can get our weekly specials. All of a sudden, everybody's talking about their weekly specials. And it's a packed place now. Pure word of mouth. And they know 100% that it all came from using Facebook. Because they had no other forms of marketing efforts, which is something I think the big brands are struggling with. And you have an excellent point, Dennis, which is have a control group, especially on a franchise basis. If you need proof of something working, stop all social for one of your locations and do another location that's not anywhere in the same vicinity and see what the impact is. And I guarantee you, if you do it right, you will see an impact.
And everyone will agree with that except for the location that gets held back on Facebook. So in 2014, Facebook is creating holdback groups that you're going to see. We were at the Partner Summit a week and a half ago. That's why I'm wearing my Facebook hoodie, but the internet connection is not strong enough to show it. And Facebook recognizes that it's about business results and not about fans and nonsense like that. So you're going to see in the next few months more products that allow the measurement of offline data, tying to the point of sale, automatic integration with MailChimp, tying with marketing automation systems. It's going to throw a lot of people who are social media pros or whatever they call themselves for a loop, because if you're not embracing other channels, you're not measuring social. You can't be good at social unless you are a good marketing strategist, unless, like Alan, you're talking about, that you understand in the real world what it's like. Remember our friend Sandeep? He took us to some Italian, or not, some Indian restaurant when we were when you were keynoting in Toronto. Yes. That restaurant there had a special. They'd have a special every week that was announced only on Facebook. So when everyone ordered the mango chutney salsa chicken, whatever it was, then they knew it was because of word of mouth, even if that person wasn't on Facebook. And most of the people who came in, they weren't on Facebook. It was that their friend who was on Facebook told them, and then they went in and said that. So that's how you measure the ROI, right? It's not the people who directly clicked on it, it's the word of mouth effect, which is often 6 or 7 times greater.
I agree. It's like my local barbecue place I'm mentioning. People come in because they know it's the pulled beef sandwich day. And the only way you know that is you get the special on Facebook. Yeah. And people are told, I'm told that you have the smoked beef today. Yep. You got it.
Yeah. But that's where the guys who are reliant upon their favorite tool, could be Hootsuite, Uberview, Facebook's own thing, whatever it is, they think that there's a false level of confidence that you get because you think that you have the click-through, you think you have the referring traffic. Of course, Google Analytics is is hiding all that data now, but man, it's incredible how everything's become cross-channel now.
Yeah, multiple touch point, and that's actually been the way it's been for many years. I think as an industry, we're all coming to that rationalization. It used to be to get someone to sign up for your email, yes, you could go buy a list and they would quickly unsubscribe, but if you met someone at a trade show, got their email address, put them on your mailing list, how many emails did it have to come? You'd send them an email offer, but then they're at Best Buy, they're at a department store, they walk by and they see a product, go, ooh, I know those things, and I could use that today. Cha-ching.
So half an hour ago, I was with the world's leading antivirus provider, and we were meeting with their head of social and also the guys who control paid search and the affiliate program, and they use a big name advertising agency, and they spend tens of millions of dollars on these, depending on what's going on right now. And what was funny was that the last few months they had to turn off their social ads, in particular their Facebook ads. You know why? It's because they were running ads into the newsfeed, and they got so much negative feedback that it was hurting them more than any kind of brand lift they got, because they're also doing sentiment monitoring. It's because they were pushing their stuff out there. Hey, here's a new package. If you buy the mobile security whatever one, you'll also get a 4-pack to cover all these other phones. And they're just pushing stuff. They were being self-promotional, and people were clicking hide and saying, hey, get off of my news feed. And so they had to stop because they weren't being social. The thing I loved about, like Alan, you and I, when we hung out at PubCon in New Orleans, you told me you were being social before it became faddish, and it was about building the long-time relationships, and how you became a social media star because of some people that you met back at PubCon like 10 years ago or something like that, right?
Exactly. You got it. And met them, and the networking connections from meeting people face-to-face, then taking it online through things like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, keeping in contact. From people I met literally 10 years ago, I still get payoff today. And that is being social, whether it is through Facebook or any other social application. People still forget the telephone's a social app. It's that simple, and there are people who knew how to work a phone. Those same people know how to work Facebook.
Yeah. What is the ROI of meeting somebody at a conference? What is the ROI of a Facebook fan? It's the same question, right? The ROI of, having dinner with Michelle.
Exactly.
Cool.
Well, that's got a big positive ROI right there. So.
Since we're talking
we can see your flush now on the Hangout.
Yeah. Since we're talking about measurement and all that kind of stuff, what kinds of engagement cues are you looking for when you make a determination on which piece of content to promote and which one to just kind of let lie when it comes to Facebook? Is it just about number of likes? Is it about commentary? Is it about the kinds of commentary that you're getting on a particular post? What are you looking for on the content side to go, okay, that one's worth promoting and spending some money on?
Well, obviously you're going to look at click-through rate, cost per click, negative feedback, conversion rate, and that kind of stuff. But let me ask you this question, which I think will clarify the point in a way that people don't look at it normally. Mm-hmm. So let's say, Michelle, you are a pilot of a 777 aircraft, and you are in flight right now. What's the most important metric? Is it your altitude, how much fuel you have, your direction, your rudder? Which of those is the most important?
Oh, well, any pilot will tell you it's a combination of all of those.
It is, and it depends on what's going on. Now, if you're taking off and you're still on the runway, and you know your airspeed and your direction is going to be very important. But if you are at 30,000 feet, right, and provided you're not next to Mount Everest or something, then right, let's say you're out of fuel and you're only halfway there, right? Depending on where you are in your journey with that particular customer, one-on-one sorts of relationships at scale, depends on what that metric is. So therefore, they're all important. It's like, what's the most valuable leg of a three-legged stool? You pull any one of them and the thing falls down. So that's not a way of ditching the question by being clever and saying it depends. It's saying that you have to do a stacking strategy. So you have different pieces of content that are at the top of the funnel that are there to just engage and create awareness and get your brand out there and let people know who you are. You have content, once they know who you are, maybe they're a fan, maybe they're on your email list, and you're trying to tell them more about what you are and tell your story and engage them deeper. And then you have conversion content, which is the third layer. We like to talk about these three layers: audience, engagement, and conversion. And you have content that's stacked in each of these layers that you promote to different audiences as they trickle down. So, Michelle, maybe you become a fan. Now, ding, you should be subject to another flow, a sequence of events and messaging that is based on who you are and what you've bought and so forth. Or you've purchased at JCPenney. So we have your email address and phone number. Now we should message you on Facebook saying, hey, come back in the next week, 20% off, buy a gift card. Maybe we know something about your family, and right? So imagine if we had this kind of information and we could stack it. Then it's not just a single metric like, oh, I'm going to just broad brush measure my engagement based on click-through rate. Well, if that's the case, then I'm going for cost per click and I'm going for the lowest quality clicks instead of going for maybe people who are at the bottom of the funnel where they're higher income and therefore higher education, they have a lower click-through rate. So you can't fix a broken watch with the sledgehammer. So when people say, oh, what's the one metric? Well, I wish I could tell you, ta-da, the magic metric is PTAT. No. Every piece of content has a particular goal, and depending on what stage in the funnel, audience engagement or conversion, you're going to look at a particular metric.
Well, Dennis, to go to your point, I think what has confused many, I'd say the C-suite, where they've been sold since the late 90s about web advertising, which is we're going to run a banner, we're going to run a pay-per-click ad on Google, and they're going to click through, we're going to take them to a landing page, and they're going to buy, which was a very few-step, really obvious funnel. The funnel is they're doing a search on a term, we're going to bid on that term, we're going to have an ad that's going to capture them, and we'll put them on a landing page, and we'll flow them down to giving us their credit card. The problem is, when you were doing that, you were catching people when they were actually looking for your service and your product at that time. And that's why I say there is no, yes, it's the depends key performance indicator. On social, you're picking up a fan today for some reason. You've done something that's attracted them to you, but they may not, maybe just that I might be interested in this. I'm not even sure if I want more information. The next step might be getting them more information. The next step in their journey might be, I'm going to now go do some price comparison or service comparison or quality comparisons. And they may circle right back to get more information. So we're getting people who are not conducting a traditional, linear type of funnel, and it's a circular influence. Or they've become a fan, they got the information, they're ready to buy, and then they're going out on Facebook with friends. I'm thinking of buying this from company X. What do you guys think? Especially right now on Facebook. And that, I think, is something else people don't understand. And if you haven't been giving a good impression, not just to that person who's a fan, but to the friends of the fan and the friends of a friend of a fan, that's where you're going to be having major letdowns. And that's where the ROI comes from, being the good corporate citizen, being there at all levels of the customer's journey, not just when they're ready to buy. And I think that's something that a lot of organizations are simply missing at today.
Well, isn't it easier just to basically set up a cash register at the end of the funnel and take credit for people who are going to buy anyway? Like you were saying, Alan, the web ads of before, the people who did paid search. I think Google made most of their money just by charging for people who were trying to go to eBay or Amazon or whatever. Anyway, I knew that because when I ran internal analytics at Yahoo, I looked at my first day on the job back in 2000. I wanted to look at what were the top search terms that were coming in on Yahoo, right? What were people typing in? And they were typing in eBay, Amazon.com. They're typing in all of these words because they didn't know how to navigate. So it was easy for PPC guys to take credit for stuff that was going to happen because people just didn't know how to type stuff in, so they just typed it into the box instead of the URL bar. But now, with social, you're right. The top of the funnel is before people have decided they want something. You actually have to sell them. You have to engage them versus you just basically have a toll booth, right? I think of the old ads of before as just a toll booth where, of course, you're going to make money because people can't exit or go into the parking lot until they pay you.
Right, and if you're, say, a Walmart and someone typed in Google, General Electric toaster oven, you ran an ad for General Electric toaster oven. Oh yeah, I'm looking for one. Now, if you're General Electric, you have to be social and engaging people to tell them the benefits of your toaster oven over the Proctor Silex over whoever the competitors are in that space. Black & Decker. So it's a whole different animal where you may not even be the person's where the cash register is located, but you're pushing people to the cash register. So you're actually hurting, the sheep, for lack of an analogy. You're gathering the crowd that's going to say, here, look how good a brand we are. Now go buy it, and here's where you can buy it. And I think that's something else.
That's amazingly deep. I don't think a lot of people are going to catch what you said there because General Electric, instead of relying on the retailer where they don't have a direct relationship with the consumer, now has to build a relationship with that consumer and ignite passion. And how is General Electric going to say, are you really interested in why this toaster is better than the Proctor Silex toaster? I mean, really, does it brown the bread better? Does it use less electricity? Is it cheaper? I don't think, maybe some people here do, but I don't think many people really give a damn about this toaster versus that other toaster, right? So how do you do that in social media with something that is a little bit dumber? And how do you reach out to the relationship when you're CPG and you work through a distribution channel? So we've been working with Jack Daniels and Finlandia and some of these other guys where they traditionally have not collected information because they just sold it to the bars and sold it to the retailers who then sell, the distributors who then sell the bottles, right? Sell the drinks. But they found that if they could influence those underlying subscribers, their sentiment about what your brand stands for, about how Finlandia is about clean, pure alcohol that mixes well, then they are just like the drug companies are able to get people to demand from their doctor that they want the purple pill, right? I think that's where social media is actually able to turn things around where the consumer has the power instead of the doctor says, the all-powerful doctor, God in the white coat, says you're going to take this drug. I think that's amazing where the power has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I can agree. The power has greatly shifted, and whether you're a big fan of BP Oil or not, they've been trying to use social to clean up their brand image after the big Gulf oil spill. And to a certain degree, between running TV commercials, magazine ads, and participating in environmental social groups, showing, look what we're doing, they're trying to, resurrect a bad corporate image. And that's something like the General Electric. No, it's not about which toaster oven makes the toast the fastest or the most consistently. But when you go to choose a brand and you're seeing that there's a $2 or a $5 price difference, is it going to be brand recognition? Is it going to be, well, I know General Electric's a good corporate citizen, or is it Proctor Silex, or is it Black & Decker, who, oh, by the way, I saw how they came to so-and-so's rescue one time, or so-and-so posted that they had a problem with their toaster oven, and they called, General Electric, and they went over the top to resolve it. Those are areas where social, at the higher level of major corporations, which aren't at the retail level, which aren't at the consumer level, really are going to be pulled into the equation if they're not there already, and they better start concentrating on it.
One of the things that just completely floored me in the last couple of weeks was decision making. You know, I actually studied economics at the London School of Economics and all the mathematical modeling of how people make decisions. So we tend to assume that people are rational. But what struck me is that people make decisions emotionally, and then they later rationalize. There's always a real reason. Like my mom, oh, I saved all this money. Nordstrom had a sale. Oh, man, you better stop. You're going to save so much money, we won't have anything left. Right? I don't know if any of the women here who have lots of shoes are feeling guilty or maybe hitting too close to home.
You're talking about my mother again. Okay.
At least it's not, you know, Imelda Marcos or something with how many pairs? 20,000 pairs of shoes or whatever. But
Yeah.
I was with the Eisenbergs a couple weeks ago, and they forwarded me an article that said that, I can give it to you guys later, that said that there's a pathway for when you make rational decisions. You know, you're calculating, you're logically looking at the features and looking at cost and, you know, making a very logical right brain, or is it left brain decision. And then there's the emotional side where it's how you feel and what your friends are doing and the sort of the reptilian medulla, core brain, right, brain stem. And here's the shocker. You can only activate one pathway. If you're thinking logically and rationally, you can't think emotionally. If you're thinking emotionally, you can't be logical and rational. Now, when people are on social, they're seeing what their friends are doing, they're engaging emotionally. That's how they're making decisions. So the minute you have marketers that come in and say, hey, 20% off or free shipping if you spend $60, now you've engaged the rational brain, and you're not going to get the purchase for the most part because you've made people switch, see?
Mm-hmm. And this is all the reason why Pampers has adorable babies all over their stuff.
Right. That was Michelle gave a great address at SES Chicago, and she really talked about, you know, imagery in your social ads have to pull at heartstrings, at the emotional, because we are being social. We're there to chat with our friends, to see good news, to unfortunately read sometimes sad news, what's happening in their lives. And then an ad comes up that says save 20%. Well, I just read that, you know, my cousin broke her leg. Well, I don't want to find out about saving 20%, you know, at Nordstrom's. And because you're right, it's a different side of the brain, the emotional versus the logical. And that's
then you have to force people to switch pathways. If they're on the emotional pathway and they're on Facebook, that's how they connect with their friends. That's how they make decisions because their friends are doing it. You know, the more information there is, the lazier people get. I lost my electric toothbrush in some hotel a couple days ago, right? I left it behind, and now I got to buy a new one. I could go to Amazon and for a week read all the different reviews and then eventually figure out which one I'm going to buy. Or I could just see, you know, Michelle has such nice, beautiful white teeth. You should smile so people can see it. You know what? I'm going to buy whatever one she's, you know, if I go to Amazon and I can see the one that she recommended, maybe she's got a review, I'm going to buy that one. So the more information there is, ironically, the less I want to see, and the more I'm going to use my friends as a filter, the more I'm going to use the emotional side to make decisions. And I think it's going to be increasingly so. That's why Facebook had to get on Instagram. By Instagram, that's why I think Snapchat is valued as they are, because they think that the video side is going to be even more, right? Because the purchase-making decision with more and more information relies more and more upon what your friends are doing, not upon landing page optimization. And nothing wrong with that either.
You know what? That's perfect, because my next question was going to be, okay, how does all of this play into decision makings about both the ad creative and the landing page? So, I mean, you're tracking with exactly what I was about to ask you.
Oh, can you hear me? I put myself on mute there for a minute. Sorry, I got a bad connection. So
that's all right.
It goes back to different points in the funnel, right? So it's not that you're always calculating when you're going to buy something. You're constantly being influenced with the always-on, very light touch social messages of friends who you see that are wearing the product and using the product, and you drive by and you find out more about it because of lateral references to something. And then later when it comes time to buy a car, or it's time to renew your driver's license, or it's time to do whatever it is where you're going to spend some money, then the logical brain kicks in. But you know, humans are naturally lazy in a good way, to conserve energy. So you're only going to engage the rational brain and do thinking when it's tax time, when it's time like, oh, okay, fine, now I have to, you know, buy whatever it is. So if you've influenced all the people, if you've influenced them up until that point, like Alan was saying, the decision is basically already made, and then the rational side will say, then they have to rationalize and justify it. So as long as you have enough social trust and there's no cognitive dissonance from, I paid too much, or later you bought it, but then later you found you could get it cheaper somewhere else. Then landing page optimization is simply making it so that people can check out without dumb things like sessions timing out and all that. I think that the current batch of landing page optimization is about superficial things like changing the color of the button, and is it 3 bullet points versus 4, and do we change the image, and those are all very superficial, because what causes people to convert is the fact that they decide that they want it, and it's just not getting in the way of the fact that they're going to buy something. And so people who do optimization, they have to go to the deeper psychology of why somebody wants something or why they wouldn't buy it, and address those objections. And that requires, unfortunately, more expertise, deeper knowledge than just, I'm just going to use, Optimizely or Adobe Test and Target, and nothing wrong with using those guys. But I'll blame the vendors here, and I'll love to see if you guys agree. The vendors have made it so that they think that software is the answer, and therefore the things that you do to tweak to optimize are things that are within the software, as opposed to the stuff we're talking about, which unfortunately is not part of the software, like crafting your voice and what you stand for and activating communities is not something software does.
I'll agree 100%. And as I put in my book that's now several years old, Last Original Idea, marketing for the last 2,000 years has all been about crafting your voice, having a consistent message, and being there for your clients. Yes, you could have a figurehead, a big brand icon, but if you didn't have quality, if you didn't have customer support, you weren't there. Paul Revere, yes, famous for the ride of Paul Revere, he made pots. And Revereware is still an existing company of his. And they've, for centuries now, have been making quality cookware. And yes, circumstance gave him an iconic figure to rally around. And that's part of, I think, where organizations still don't get it. I'm telling my kids now, which are basically 14 and 12, learn to write and write well. 20 years ago, you didn't find a CEO who could write a blog post. They had their secretaries writing for them. They'd hire writers. Now they're expected to be, not just sit at a desk and look at econometric models and financial forecasts. They're expected to be a spokesperson. They're expected to be able to write and be published. And that's and they're now becoming the brand. And I think that is part of that whole shift. And we have to get away from that. The tools are the message, are the mechanism. You buy a house. You don't buy a pile of lumber and hammers and nails and paint. And unfortunately, there are vendors who are selling us tools that are the hammers, nails, paints, wood, and they're saying, see, we got you a house here. No, you can use those tools to make your life easier, but you still have to have a design, have a vision, and then use the tools to help implement it. So I'm 100% with you, Dennis. It's a message that people have to get across. We got to stop looking. I'm picking on a particular tool here. I put Radiant 6, so I'm mastering my social. I put in Tracker. I got this. I'm using Hootsuite versus TweetDeck. Stop. Those are. Do you want a gold-plated hammer or do you want a hammer? The purpose is still to drive in nails. And when we get past that on the tools, we need to know what the message we're trying to, the image that we're trying to build in the social world.
Oh, so wait, you mean if I have Photoshop? I thought if I had Photoshop, then I'm automatically a designer, right?
That's right. Well, that was when we had HomeSuite. We all became webmasters.
Okay.
I'm going back all time. I'm sure you know the reference, but it was. I'm still seeing too many organizations doing things like that. Consulting companies like myself, like competitors, they're not saying we're going to go. It's when I hear large organizations are outsourcing their social media effort. What, you're hiring a Madison Avenue agency to represent you Midwestern values and protocols and communications and how to deal with customers? No. Hire a firm to teach you how to manage it and to be there as an advisor? Sure. But too many people, I don't have time for social. I don't have time for this. It drives me up the wall. I know a lot of companies went to e-commerce because they didn't want to have to deal face-to-face with the customers. Well, the customers came screaming back. We want interaction with our brands. We want to be social, whether it's physically in one of your retail outlets or online, and we have to come back and rally back around that.
Hey guys, my battery's dying, so I might only have a couple minutes.
You know what? That's fine. We are getting to the end of this. One last quick question. How do we track all this to the end through Google Analytics and all that? What do we need to make sure that we're doing? We've got our targeting right. We've got our creative right. We've got all of our ducks in a row. How do we measure that ROI?
Stack all your analytics against where your goal measurement is. So if it's retail store stuff, then it's your point of sale. If your conversion's on the website, fine, Google Analytics. But depending on what your goal is where you're going to measure. If it's digital, then you need to use some kind of tag management because it's more than just your website now. It's cookies and stuff that can be tracked through JavaScript and APIs across Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. You're going to need either the free tag management from Google Tag Manager, which is integrated now into Google Analytics if you allow it, or enterprise tag management. But that's where everything's going. You don't have to do attribution unless you're really fancy, but everything's moving towards assembling your audience across all the places that it lives, which is more than your website. Google Analytics is great for your website.
Yeah, as an analytics guy, I have to agree with that. Google Analytics is a web analytics tool. They're branching out to provide a few more services, but Facebook has its insights. There's Twitter Analytics. You need to start looking at all those and somehow develop your strategy for cross-tracking.
Indeed. As Dennis warned us, his battery was about to go. That was it. He dropped out. Dennis, when you come back around to view the video later, thank you very much for all of your insights and input. Alan, do you have any final words?
Just going to rally a little bit behind Dennis, actually. We're on a panel together in New York next month at Insight, measuring social media, or Insight Social Sales, something of that nature. I'm sorry, bad remembering the name. Anyway, but what Dennis said is we really need to look at the bigger picture, stop micromanaging and micromeasuring things in social. And when it comes to Facebook, the whole thing that people will rally around is awesome content. So this is something that Dennis brought up during our Twitter chat. If you have a piece of social content that you've put up organically that did generate better than average comments and likes, that's now telling you something you've created that resonates. Don't wait 24 hours. Don't wait 3 days to post it. Make that a sponsored post. Take that sentiment. If it keeps working, turn it into an ad, because even as a sponsored post, nobody wants to see the same post every day, in that same spot every day for 2 weeks. Turn that into a side ad. It will resonate. And it is multiple touch points. How many times does someone have to see your brand before they actually make a purchase? And I think that's key with Facebook. And as I mentioned earlier on in this hangout, we're not catching people in search for saying, where do I get the best price for X? And you run ads, best price for X. We're now in a social world where you have to even explain to them what X is and maybe why they want X. Plus, they just saw 3 of their friends having X and going, now they want it. And I'll wrap up with, I just realized I'm shifting on a picture here, Google Glass. When I first saw this, I thought, who's going to want this? I could see the practical side. But as I start attending conferences this fall and I see more and more people I know with Google Glass, being told about all the fun they're having with Google Glass, then they do another round of distribution and a few more people I know get it. All of a sudden it's like, maybe it's worth $1,500. I still can't justify the $1,500 for it. But I'm starting to say, well, maybe as a person in social, I can justify having it to be one of the early adopters. And that's exactly what Google's doing. They're creating a social demand by putting out a limited number of things that we're actually paying to be their beta testers. Something that would have been unheard of 10 years ago, paying $1,500 to be a beta tester. Mm-hmm. But they're creating demand. As people walk around, is that Google Glass? Can I try it? Can I do this? And it's creating demand. And that's exactly when you're running ads on Facebook. You're running ads, you're targeting ads based on people's likes, or that they're friends of a friend who like you, so you assume that people are birds of a feather and flock together. and you're creating that demand. There's nothing better than someone unboxing their latest gadget saying, look, isn't this cool? And you go like, oh man, I was thinking of getting one. Well, if Michelle got it, I really should get one too. Because Michelle, what do you think about it? Now that you got it, what do you think about it? And I know very few people who will ever make a major purchase and tell you they made a mistake. They'll self-justify their purchase, so it's self-fulfilling. But meanwhile, they've managed to share it with their friends. And the old adage from TV commercials from the 70s where she told two friends, and they told two friends, and they told two friends. Well, now on social, they told, on average, I looked, typically most people have a little over 200 friends. Well, they just told 200 friends. And they told 200 friends. Very quickly, it's growing at a viral rate if you can put up content that resonates with your audience, and that's the key to Facebook advertising. Create content. Yes, it's advertorial, but that will resonate with your audience. Get them to like it and to share, and you'll be the success.
Indeed. Thank you so much for sitting in on this, adding your 2 cents. You always bring an extra something to our discussions, and it was good to see you again, man.
Great, always good to see you, since we rarely get to do the chat in the same city.
All right, folks, that wraps it up for this Social Chat Recap. See you again next week.